So in the first video about the communion in part 1, I made the statement and said the communion is Jesus and Jesus is the communion. Now in the next two parts, the bread and the wine, you will see why I say that, why that is so important. So to give you a background about what the communion is and what it was about. They were at the time of the communion, um, when it happened, they were celebrating the feast called Pesach, Passover. It started in the round about the year 1200 BC, before Christ, in Egypt, when the Israelite people were slaves in Egypt, and God took them out of Egypt with the power um, and the signs of the 10 plagues that happened in Egypt. Most people have a pretty good idea what those plagues are. I'm not going to go into detail about the plagues. What is important is the last plague was the death of the firstborn sons. So after 9 plagues, Pharaoh still didn't want the Israelites to leave Egypt, so God sent the final plague, and that was the death of the firstborn sons. But to spare Israel from that horrible plague, he said they should slaughter a lamb and take the blood of the lamb and put it on the doorposts, on the sides and at the top and at the bottom, and sprinkle the blood there. And then they should take the lamb's meat and they should eat it inside of the house. And they should bake bread, but the bread must not be baked with leaven. It must be unleavened bread. So leaven is a raising agent inside of bread to make it rise. But it takes several hours for bread to rise. And they didn't have nice, quick raising leaven like we have now. So it took half a day for bread to rise once, and then you had to raise it again the second time before it could be baked. So they had to slaughter the lamb, put the blood on the doorposts, and bake unleavened bread. They had to bake the unleavened bread because God knew that they would have to leave in a hurry. So that was the way they were protected when the spirit of death came and saw the blood on the doorposts. It would pass by the house. That's why we call it Passover. It would pass over the house, and the firstborn of the house would not be killed. But any house that did not have the blood of the lamb on it had the spirit that went in, and the firstborn was killed. Okay, so that also happened to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh's firstborn son was killed. So, and that immediately after the son of Pharaoh was killed, he immediately went out, called Moses, and told Moses that the Israelites better leave Egypt immediately. So the Israelites packed up very quickly and left. So that is the story of the Passover. So later in Jesus' time, they were still doing the feast every year. And God instituted the feast in the time of Moses and said every year at Passover, a unblemished lamb had to be slaughtered on Passover. So, and that happened exactly like that also on the day that Jesus was crucified. So the moment that the priest would cut the lamb's throat and the blood would be spilled. That was the moment Jesus died on the cross. But in the Passover communion meal, Jesus took the bread and said, "This is my body. Do it in remembrance of me." So take it and eat it in remembrance of me. And he specifically broke it. So not only should we remember Jesus, but also his sacrifice on that day, how he died for us. So now if you understand the history of the Passover in Egypt, and the cross, that death passes us over because of the sacrifice of the Lamb, who is Jesus. That means that we have everlasting life because of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. We will not taste everlasting death. We will have everlasting life. And that is something that Jesus wants us to remember. His sacrifice on the cross, that his body was broken for us, and that we have everlasting life because of that.